think it's safe to say 2020 has been a bit of a year to forget. I, for one, I'm just looking forward to 2021 now. Get this year out of the way. Forget it ever happened, to be honest. There have been some saving graces to 2020, though, namely music. And there has been a lot of good music this year. So many artists out there have really defied the odds to bring us some amazing music this year, some really good albums. I just want to have a bit of a look back today on some of the better moments of 2020, my top 10 albums of the year. Hopefully we can put a bit more of a positive spin on what's been an otherwise forgettable year. Just a disclaimer right at the start, this is my opinion, okay? You are entitled to your opinion, of course, even if it is wrong. Alright, it's a joke, alright? It's a joke. It's not fact, it's what I believe to be the top 10 albums this year. Anyway, I thought I'm going to kick this off with an honourable mention. This didn't make my list because it's technically an EP and not an album, but it's still a really good listen anyway. I really enjoyed it. It is Bring Me the Horizon's Posthuman Survival Horror. I know Bring Me the Horizon could be a little bit of a controversial band. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I, for one, didn't like their previous album, Ammo. It didn't really sit with me at all. But I'm a fan of some of their other stuff, and for me, this has really brought it back to what they're good at, and it's a really solid release. They've got a couple of guest artists on this EP, namely Baby Metal, of all people. Them mixed together with Bring Me the Horizon is, yeah, it works really nicely. Go check that out. It's a really solid release, really good EP. Oh yeah, one more thing. My music taste is geared up towards rock and metal, so it's largely that in this countdown. There are a few exceptions, but that's where it's going to be going towards, alright? So don't be surprised if you see a lot of that. So, without further ado, we'll go for number 10. And my number 10 for this year is a band called Katatonia with their album City Burials. So Katatonia are kind of like a progressive rock band, progressive metal in some cases. So they kind of defy normal song structures and things like that. They play around with their time signatures and just make things a little bit quirky. The sheer musicality of these guys is incredible. They are amazing musicians, and they've put together a really good release here. They've been around for quite a while now, Katatonia, and they've got a lot of albums, a lot of releases, which I would really recommend checking out if you haven't heard of them before, which I realise that not a lot of people will have necessarily. Obviously, if you're into your more progressive rock and metal, you might have heard of them, in which case this won't be news to you and you'll know how good they are. But if you haven't, I really recommend checking them out. It's a nice listen and something a bit different. So coming in at number 9, we're moving away from the rock a little bit here. This is Robert John and the Wreck with Last Light on the Highway. Now, when I first listened to this, I was sold immediately. It is simply beautiful. It's a more softer kind of southern country rock album with some really beautiful melodic pieces in there as well. It's really catchy. There's loads of catchy tunes on there that will get you singing along. It's really kind of feel good. It's kind of really good driving music as well. Makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, to be honest. It's a great album. I'd never heard of them before. It was my first time listening. And it's fantastic. It's so good. I definitely recommend checking this out. So yeah, let me know what you think. So here at number 8, we're going down a similar route to number 9, actually. Definitely kind of like southern rock vibes here. It's the Cadillac 3 with Country Fuzz. What stood out to me in this, some of the guitar tones they were achieving, it really is quite fuzzy, as you would probably expect from the title. And again, like just the general feel-good vibe that you get from this album. Tons of really catchy songs that you'll catch yourself singing along to just after a listen or two, to be honest. So yeah, the Cadillac 3, that again, they're another band with quite a few releases that I'd recommend you go and check out. And yeah, but if you're interested in a bit more of a feel-good listen, it's brilliant. Okay, number 7. Now this is where things turn to the heavier side. Quite a lot heavier, in fact, because my number 7 is Lamb of God with their self-titled album, Lamb of God. Those of you who know Lamb of God will know just how heavy they are. Randy Blythe's vocals in this are just as gnarly as ever. His scream is just defies logic defies physics. How good it sounds and how long he's been doing it for, it's still faultless. It still sounds incredible. You know, the sound of his voice properly comes through on this album. I think somehow he's even better now than he was when he started off. Mark Morton's riffs, as always, just top notch. The thing about Lamb of God is they managed to achieve this amazingly heavy, deep sound without tuning their guitars really low. They achieve it with just in standard drop D. The tones they achieve and the riffs and the drumming. Oh my god, the drumming is so good on this album. Yeah, so if you want something that's just going to get you properly like pumped up, feeling a bit angry, you know, you need to get it out. Lamb of God, you can't go far wrong. There are some real standout tunes on this, specifically Memento Mori. Other songs in there to look out for: Resurrection Man, New Colossal Hate as well. Just, you know, classic Lamb of God tunes. My god, they still do it so well. Okay, number 6. We're going to dial it back a little bit from Lamb of God. And with number 6, we have Biffy Clyro with A Celebration of Endings. Biffy Clyro are just one of those bands that just seem to consistently release brilliant music. They picked up quite a lot of traction recently. They get played on things like Radio 1 as well, which I think is brilliant for the rock industry in general. Getting rock music more widely listened to by the wider population, I think it's just fantastic. And this album combines kind of rock and pop together in a really, just in a great way. This album has everything, to be honest. It has everything you'd want from a Biffy Clyro album. It's a little bit wacky here and there. You know, you got the heavier rock parts as well, but then they have some songs that are just masterpieces, to be honest. The last track on this album is like 6 minutes long, and the majority of the song is just this amazing instrumental part that just keeps building and building and building to this incredible climax, and it's such a perfect way to end the album. And that's after you've heard a load of really good hits, recognizable songs that I'm sure you probably would have heard of before. This album is so good that for me, it might even be one of their best albums, full stop. Definitely in my top 3 albums that they've ever made, and they have incredibly high standards. So that speaks volumes for just how good this is. So yeah, that's my number 6. Okay, number 5. We're going back towards the heavier side of things now, with a band called Polaris, with their album The Death of Me. So Polaris are a metalcore band, I believe from Australia, and this is their second studio release, I believe. This album came out right at the start of the year, and I thought this was a sign of good things to come for the year. It was a great way to start the year. I might have been a little bit wrong about that one, but nevertheless, it's a fantastic album for any metal fans out there. They introduce quite a lot of heavy breakdowns, but also they keep a really good melodic style over the top of these heavier parts of the songs. Specifically, look out for the song Landmine. That song hits so hard, it properly gets you pumped up, and it's one of my favourite songs of the year. I love this album so much that Polaris became my top played artist on Spotify for the whole of 2020. Of course, I shared my Spotify top artists on my Instagram earlier in the year, along with so many other things. So if you're not already, you should go and follow me. Go on. It's in the description. Go on. It's down there. Go on. Have you done it? I can wait. It's fine. Honestly, got all day. It's fine. I can wait. Yeah, definitely a really solid release, worthy of being in top 5 for me. I thought at the time it was released it was going to be my favourite album of the year. Didn't quite turn out that way. Really tough list to make, and I appreciate nobody even really cares. But you know what? I've done it anyway. Okay, now we're coming up to the business end of things here. Number 4, that is Bury Tomorrow with Cannibal. This album, again, a complete instant hit with me. They teased a couple of the singles from the album for a while before they released it, so I'd heard things like Choke, Cannibal, and The Grey, the first 3 tracks before the album came out, which just made me so excited for when it actually dropped, and it didn't disappoint at all. One of the things I believe about Bury Tomorrow, which makes them a little bit different to other bands, is that they have 2 vocalists that take a lot of the lines, and one for the cleans and one for the screams. The lead vocalist who does the screaming has such a unique sound to his voice. I've never heard any other vocalist sound like him ever. And the album as a whole, very heavy, very consistently good from front to back. Yeah, I'm not going to go too much into the specifics of every album because I want you all to go and check them out yourself. This is just my rundown. But yeah, again, Bury Tomorrow, Cannibal, excellent release. We're into the top 3. This is where it got so tough for me to pick between the remaining 3, because honestly every release in my top 3 I think is near enough a perfect album. I don't think there's anything wrong with any of these albums that I've said, specific, and even more so the top 3, but I had to try and choose somehow, so this is what I've come up with. So my number 3 is Trivium with What the Dead Men Say. Now Trivium are just one of those bands that do not release bad music. They just don't. They've changed their style quite a few times over the years, but still managed to hit the nail on the head when it comes to the albums they've released. There's always been solid tracks on every single album, and this one is no exception. One of the main things to note about Matt Heafy's vocals now is he used to do a lot more gritty screaming, but that's kind of dialed back a little bit because he had to change how he sang quite a number of years ago. Completely destroyed his vocal cords by not singing or screaming correctly, so he completely had to relearn how to sing. The tone of his voice now is just as good as it's ever been. His cleans sound great. He did some work in an earlier album with the lead singer of Disturbed, David Draiman, and I think his influence has kind of stayed with him in a way. You can really hear that kind of influence in his clean vocals, but he still managed to keep the grit from his screaming as well, but now he does it in a more safe manner, and he's able to do it all day, every day, without destroying his voice, so that's always a positive. The album itself is just banger after banger after banger. It is so good. I could literally listen to any single one off that album and happily just sing along to it because it's so catchy, it's so memorable, it's so consistently good from track 1 until right up until the end. I don't have a bad word to say about it, honestly. It's just brilliant. I think if I remember correctly, the last time I was actually able to go to a gig would have been Download Festival in 2019, one of the last anyway, and one of the standout performers from that weekend were Trivium. They really are just a band that live long in the memory. This album is up there with some of the best they've ever done, in my opinion. So if you ever went off them or used to listen to them back in the day, I think now is a really good time to come back and listen to Trivium again. Number 2. This I thought was going to be my number 1, to be honest, and it's only just been pipped to the top spot. It's August Burns Red with Guardians. I have listened to this album so many times this year because it is just so repeatable and so good. I just never get tired of it. August Burns Red have become the king of the breakdown in metal. There are so many really punchy breakdowns in this album. Namely, if you listen to Defender, it might knock you off your feet a little bit. So make sure you're sitting down. Just makes you want to get up and start moving and get into a mosh pit. It makes me miss live music so much. I've booked tickets to go and see them with Bury Tomorrow at the back end of next year, hoping to God that I can go, because it's just such a good album. And everything they've released up until now has been good, but I think this is a level above, to be honest. I think this is the best album they've ever released. Maybe, but it's between this and Constellations, but for me, I think this is actually better. The thing about August Burns Red as well is the guitar parts they do. They play loads of harmonized guitar parts together, and they're really complex, but it works. It works in the song, and they tie it all together really nicely to bring together this massive sound. And honestly, I can't recommend it highly enough. You really should go and listen to this if you're a fan of your metal. I can't wait to go and see it live. That and Bury Tomorrow, my number 4, together in one gig. Oh, it's going to be great. If it happens, please COVID, please. Don't take away any more live music. I can't take it. But yeah, anyway, that's my number 2. So here we are, the moment we've all been waiting for all year. The whole year has been building to this one moment on my channel right now. My number 1 top album of the year. And it's a bit of a rogue choice. It's a band that I'm not expecting that many people to have necessarily heard of. But this album is quite simply a masterpiece. is a band called Chaos Divine with their album Legacies. So Chaos Divine are a prog metal band from Australia, and I only came across them by chance, really, on a shuffle playlist I was listening to. It came up as a suggestion, and I listened to one of their songs, and I was just gobsmacked, honestly. So what's made me choose this as my number one is just how the whole album flows beautifully from start to finish. It feels more like an experience, like a journey, than an album. And only very few albums that I've listened to actually manage that. One of the standout parts of this album are the vocals. The lead singer has the most amazing, powerful voice, and he really nails every single song on this album. He can hit these amazing, melodic, soaring high notes, but then can also give you like the punchy kind of growl when he needs to. The thing about this as well is it's just different. It's not like anything else I've ever heard before. The thing about progressive metal bands is they progress the genre. They change it. They do their own thing. They take it in a new direction. And what they've stumbled across here, basically, to me, is a perfect album. It's not just my favorite album of the year. It's one of my favorite releases for a number of years. If I were to do a top 10 countdown of releases this decade, this would be right up there as well. If you're a progressive metal fan, if you're a metal fan, rock fan, I think you'll love it. Like I said, they're a lesser known band, but I can't hold this in high enough regard. I really can't. It's amazing to me that they don't have a bigger following than they do. I can't work it out. I'm really hoping they come to the UK when this whole thing's blown over. So yeah, if you're watching, guys, please come to the UK. I'll be the first one to buy a ticket. I'd also recommend an album they released called Colliding Skies. That's what first got me into them. So yeah, that basically wraps us up, I think. That's my top 10. Maybe not quite what you were expecting. Maybe you've found a new artist. Maybe you've found a new album you really like. If you listen to anything off the back of my recommendation, please get in touch with me and let me know what you think. Even if you disagree with me, or if you think I've missed a really obvious choice in my top 10 here, I'd love to hear off you, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be missing out on great music. So if you have any recommendations of your own, put them in the comments section, or get in touch with me on Instagram or on Facebook. That's down below as well. Let me know your opinions and if you disagree or agree with me. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Until next time, that's bye for now.